free one, the land east of A15, Westlands Road, etc., etc. A very large site with 1,400 dwellings, care homes, you name it, it's there. This needs a very careful consideration. We've had Councillor Clegg and Brand looking at this in detail. I've been well aware that sometimes Sleaford Town Council's comments are pretty slim when compared. This is a letter from Washington Parish Council on a significant application there, which has got 4 pages plus an added map at the end. And I suggest the person who probably wrote it is a planning officer with another district council in Lincolnshire. But we've got a very significant application, and I do feel we need to look at it in a detailed way. We may not fully resolve it tonight because of this is a fair significant amount of time. So we could put it to globe. We could put it to a series of councillors, and I'll now put it to a floor. We have sound.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Councillor Staten and Councillor Brand have made a good start in terms of setting concerns out that probably apply across the council and all the members of the council. The issue is how to put the response together in a way that NKDC have to consider it. And the way that, I guess I know who's done this at Rottenborough as well, the way that this one's been done for 185 homes is a good example because it's set out very well, and there is a reference to every item of concern that relates to the relevant paragraph in the NPPF, and that's what NKDC then have to actually address, because if it's just I don't like it because it's lots of traffic and so on and so on and so on, then you say, oh, well, that's your view. If it's got a reference back to the NPPF and the paragraph and what it says local authorities or local planning authorities have to take account of traffic in relation to, and it's got that reference in it, then they have to actually address it. And I think that's the sort of response that we need for the very big ones, because it does require the planning authorities then to actually move into proper planning mode and make proper comments, and those proper comments are there for the future if we do need to, if it does go before an inspector or whatever it is. I think it is well worth using Globe to get that sort of response, using the comments that have come out of the 2 councillors who've done a little bit of thought about it, and whatever comes out of the meeting today. And we have time to use Globe, we have money to use Globe.
I've got Councillor Fernandez and Councillor Titmus, and Councillor Brand is eager as well. Okay, who wants to go first?
Okay, first of all, the consultation and at the source. Quite a few people from North Parade and Holdingham have voiced their concerns about their inability to get to the consultation because of the time factor. That was number one. The other one is in Holdingham, the access roads they are going to be using has already got all the roads are completely chock-a-block at the moment if they do the access, and we have to start making them use the roundabout in the plan as their first build, not as their last build. That roundabout on the A15 must be their first build to allow all the traffic into their site for building. Thirdly, I've had a look at the SUDS policy. I find that there is at least 3 metres difference between where they're going to build and the houses in the at Holdingham and North Parade. This will mean that we might be having fountains through the toilets if they do not get their waste sewage done properly at the pre-planning stage, because at the planning stage it will be just too late to deal with it. Also, suds control. There's a lot of the height. One side is over 28 metres, the other end is 18 metres above sea level. There's a flow downhill all the way of water for flooding. Also, if they put the manhole covers in the middle of the road, they will just fill, when it rains, they just go, all the way rainwater goes down the manhole covers. Therefore, we can't have manhole covers in the middle of the road. They must be on the side or somewhere else. Well, at the side. Those are the two things. And thirdly, that was pointed out to me, is that they're going to dig out areas for suds control as little pits, grass pits. This is all right through the dry season, but as soon as the wet season starts, they'll turn into ponds, and all the adults, parents around the area, will ask for them to be filled in, which has been done before. Therefore, I would like to request that all the suds area be covered with the proper geotech blocks, and that they can put the soil on top of it and put the trees on top of it. I've got pictures of how this, other areas have done it, and I've got a little pamphlet here for in the report if you wish to have that in view.
Thank you, Councillor Fernandez. Can I just have Councillor Tipton and go on to Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I fully support the idea of getting Globe involved at an early stage. My main concern, I think it's a concern of all of us, and it's already been alluded to, is that there is a danger in looking at this western urban extension in isolation from the southern urban extension, Harry Chase, and the work of the holding and so on. You already sort of mentioned it, but I think if we do take it to Globe, Globe must be looking at this overall impact it's having on Sleaford, and not just on the building of the houses and the sites themselves, but on the provision of facilities and support facilities which we need throughout the town. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Brown, I'm sure you've got a lot of...
Well, you did ask me to lead on, Mr. Chair,
Yes,
so
thank you.
I've written this short commentary to guide me through some thoughts which the Council may wish to discuss and then arrive at a resolution. On the first page of my commentary, I've reproduced an internal email from Steve Clegg where he raises 5 points. He can't be here tonight. He does raise the issue of Globe, which I think is sound. Of course, this is only the outline plan permission stage, and we can expect in due course a much fuller one, which is the one that I suspect we really want Globe to help us impact upon. The comments which I go on to make in the rest of the document to try and simplify matters are based primarily upon just 2 documents out of the great box that we have there. The primary one being document, I think it's 17, which is their report on the consultation which they did at the Hub in November. I certainly attended that, and they did get some responses from those residents and other people who attended, and that's reproduced in various tables on pages 7 and 8. I've reproduced on the second side, paragraph 5.05, their summary of the comments which at least 10% of respondents summarize. Don't look at the numbers in the brackets where it says 45, etc. So I think that's misleading if you think that only half the people present were against it. It's the way the survey was conducted and the feedback has been presented. The point is that those concerns that we have in front of us there are genuine, in my opinion, and legitimate concerns raised by people in Sleaford about the proposed development. And it's interesting that most of them are not saying, I don't want this to be built. It's about the issues associated with what's going to happen as this development progresses. And the first one, unsurprisingly, is concern about traffic generated. Now that's sort of a twofold issue. Certainly it's partially an issue about what's going to happen during the phase 1 construction, phase in which undoubtedly various people in various roads in Sleaford will find that there's an increased amount of industrial type traffic crossing their roads. The rest of 17 attempts to sort of, in my words, amortise the concerns in the sense to obviously suggest that they're not as bad as is being suggested. And I suggest that if you look at one document, it would be document 17, to see how the developers attempt to deal with the concerns. So, concerns about traffic generators, this is on page 9. The traffic generators result of the proposal was the most frequently raised issue by respondents, indeed. Their response is clearly there will be an increase in traffic on the road network as a result of development. However, the development mix is such that over time, many of the day-to-day facilities that residents need will be contained on the site, including primary and secondary schools, a GP surgery and a local neighbourhood centre, and some employment opportunities. Providing these facilities on site help to limit the need for travel. Well, I'll pick up on a number of those points as we go on. 6.05 on page 9, the primary access to the site will be on the A15, which allows those residents wishing to drive to destinations other than Sleaford to utilise the northern and western bypasses rather than driving through the town centre. Okay. Many people at the meeting, and myself included, were concerned that the roundabout will not be in place until phase 1 has been completed. One thinks this one is genuinely, in terms of, as I said, the 3 parties involved, which has to include NKDC, Lincolnshire County Council, as well as developers. One would like to have seen that they're behind this development by actually putting that roundabout in early on, rather than after the first, was it 100 or 200 houses? 200 houses have been built. 6.08 on that document says it's important to know that access along St Dennis Avenue and Stokes Drive will only be for phase 1 of the development, which we anticipate will deliver up to 200 roads. So they're not denying there's going to be an increase in traffic along those 2 roads at all, are they? And we know that when you lay out the size of this site, you're not just talking about 200 roads, you're talking about putting in the infrastructure of roads and other things along the way. So that's going to have a significant impact upon people who are living, particularly on those two roads along the way. And so they haven't actually ameliorated what they're doing and the concerns, legitimate concerns raised by people at the meeting. 6.10 I'm worried about. Currently the Drove can be utilised as a free route between the A15 and the town. Well, if you wander down to the Drove, you'll find that there's a sign up there which says that this is a no-through road. People I've spoken to, both at the meeting and subsequently during the by-election campaign, along the Drove, are deeply concerned about the use of the Drove. Because quite simply, I think it's appropriate to say, there's an illegal entry has been driven off the A15, which people should not use. And so to say currently the Drove can be utilised, no, it shouldn't be utilised, and Lincolnshire County Council, who has been approached, I believe, have not responded appropriately in blocking that off. Thank you, Councillor, for noting that down.
Well, I noted it down, but I know what the answer is. It is highway.
Well, it is highway. Well, I think that's Lincolnshire County Council.
Raised already.
They're also concerned legitimately that, because it's quite interesting, because it's phrased as road improvements. Well, I've not actually found anyone living on the Drove or off the Drove who would describe what's proposed as improvements. The Drove will be widened to 4.8 metres wide as a shared use footway cycleway on one side to facilitate pedestrian cycle access between the site and the town. The Drove will also provide a public transport route into the site, but general vehicle access to and from the wider site will not be possible from the Drove. Except they contradict themselves later on, I have to say. And I have to say that I don't think that people are particularly enthusiastic about having the sort of grass side verges removed to make it wider. My greater concern is that, of course, this might be used as a model for turning Boston Road into a dual carriageway when they seize our little corner of land to allow access onto the bowling club site. And you see, you get phrases in 6.13, general access comments. It is anticipated that the roundabout will be in place. The whole tone of this, I'm afraid, from my perspective, is yes, they're satisfying in one sense in terms of wording the concerns, but do we actually, as a town council, as inhabitants of Sleaford, believe that these things will legitimately be in place? So, general comments about the services facilities on the site. 6.17, the proposed services and facilities will be developed in accordance with trigger points contained within the S106 agreement. The services and facilities on site will cater largely for the new population, thereby preventing a strain on existing services and facilities on Sleaford, encouraging sustainable transport. Well, I think that's actually quite questionable, because it's actually saying that any 106 money will be spent on the site, and it won't help Sleaford in general. And the pretence, I have to say, that therefore it's not going to impact upon Sleaford, because my argument will be in a few moments, it's going to significantly impact upon Sleaford in terms of a number of areas, including travel, transport and the like. A number of respondents indicated that a large supermarket was required in Sleaford, stating the site would be an appropriate location for one. However, it is not in the scope of this application to provide a large food store. So the question is, unless this sort of commuter village of people are going to shop where they work in Boston or Stanford or elsewhere, where are they going to shop? Well, be it Sainsbury's or Tesco's, they're clearly going to come into town. Yeah? And so I think you see they start to, in a sense, when you try to unpack the totality of this and look at the language, you see how, in a sense, that within the clever linguistics and semantics of what we're offered, in actual fact, the whole package doesn't really hold together. Because my contention is this will have a major impact upon Sleaford, the whole of the town, and, well, if it's going to go ahead, let's actually benefit from it. 6.20. The need for new schools facilities has been established by NKDC. Interesting. It's a while since I was on a council and a member of the Education Committee, but in my day that used to be a county council affair. I happened to be in the London Borough at the time, and we used to, of course, pore over tables and projections about demographic changes and the like in order to decide upon future schools and placements and the like. But it's interesting, apparently NKDC has decided that Delivered School will be the responsibility of NKDC. Now, of course, as I said, it's some time since I was on an education committee and legislation's changed, there are academies. It might be that NKDC will build the schools and a private academy will come in to buy and run it, I don't know. But it's trying to make my point that it's not just the developers here. If NKDC and Lincolnshire County Council are wanting to support this development, let's actually see them stepping forward to actually show that they're going to do theirs in terms of actually properly facilitating what is going to happen here. And we have a similar thing about, of course, the plans. You can't in one sense argue against them. The trees which are shown on the final plan, the health centre, etc. Some respondents questioned where the doctors would come from to work in the proposed healthcare facility. Response: the staffing of the facility is not a matter for the applicant to consider, but the applicant will make the land available for such a facility. Have we not, colleagues, sat here before? I would have to use the word that not simply us, but people, not just people in Sleaford, but nationally, people have become cynical about seeing final, glorious plans in which we see this sort of lush setting, etc. And we know that 10 years on, a variation comes forward which says, well, actually, no one came forward with the school, no one came forward with it, so can we actually use it to build a few more houses on this? And I think we've rightly become cynical about this. And so I'm trying to say is, with the others, if they want to put where their money is in terms of actually saying, well, we'll actually build the roundabout early, we won't wait to the end of phase 1, we'll actually put in place these wonderful school facilities. Oh, you don't think they're going to do that, Councillor? I don't understand that. 6.22, a number of respondents expressed concerns there will be a negative impact on the town centre through the perceived increase in traffic. Well, I think I've already outlined to you that there's going to be a significant increase. I sit occasionally listening to Councillor Brighton talking about housing developments and talking about how far people are prepared to walk to the supermarket. I think he's got it down to 1-point-something kilometres along the way. Well, this is certainly going to be more than 1-point-something kilometres away from any supermarket. People are going to drive to the existing supermarkets, aren't they? That's going to drive them into and through the town. Right.
I've got much more. I know you've done a lot.
You did answer me. There's
Yes.
a little more. 6.28. Subject to viability, affordable housing will be provided on site in line with the central limit. But notice, subject to viability. So are we actually going to see this? Again, 6.32, it's expected the delivery of service entities will be linked to a S106 agreement which contains trigger points. The delivery of services and facilities on the site will be closely linked to viable aspects of the scheme and capacity requirements. In essence, the certainty will develop when it is viable to do so. And once again, you see what I'm trying to say is the 106 seems to be, they're trying to say it would just be associated with the site, but does not take account of the implications as it spreads out across Sleaford. Facilities proposed school, etc. Their comment is to an extent the onus to deliver some of it will therefore be on MKDC. I've put down 6 points there which I think you might want to discuss tonight or take forward. My point, and I think it's been in a sense touched upon and raised already, is if you just look at this as a development on its own, you would arrive at a set of conclusions which in a sense might be accurate. If you look at the greater impact upon Sleaford as a town, for me, and I think for some of my colleagues here, it actually says that's why we need a southern bypass, along the way. Because you need to look at the totality